Hey everybody, Dave here with another monthly webinar for the PTE community. I took last month off. I was traveling in Florida. I had my colleague Darko do a webinar for you guys, and I'm back this month and looking forward to talking about in-house employees, in-house in this case SEOs, but it's really applicable to a number of industries and disciplines. So sort of the in-house versus agency question, which is something that comes up a lot. I run agencies, I run an agency, but I've also hired a lot of people in-house for previous businesses that I've had. And there's a lot of pros and cons that I think would be good to kind of dive into. So we're going to get started talking about that today and kind of give you a little bit of a framework, some things to think about that will help you determine whether or not you should be looking to hire an agency for your business, or whether or not you should be doing in-house work. Before I get started, a little bit about me. Again, every month there's some people that are just joining for the first time. They're not necessarily familiar with me in the community. I'm an entrepreneur living in Philadelphia. Been here about 5, 6 or so years. I run an inbound marketing agency called Shortlist, but I also run a free community in Philadelphia called Philly Tech Entrepreneurs, and we have monthly meetups. We have a workspace on Slack, things like that. So that being said, when we think about, and let me make this full screen. When we think about kind of the agency versus in-house, there's just a number of factors that need to be considered, where in each case, you could kind of make the argument that maybe one is a bit preferred over the other. And what it really comes down to is, excuse me, which of these factors is important to you? Because they're not all going to be equal, right? A brand new startup that hasn't raised money yet may be more focused on budget flexibility, right? They may have some degree of uncertainty about, whether or not they're going to be around in a year. So they might not want to be locked into a contract. They obviously might not have raised money, so they don't have the funds to maybe hire an agency, which, is lends itself to being more expensive by nature of the fact that agency's business model is usually taking labor and then charging a premium on that. If you are a larger, more established business, you might be more interested in, speed, right? So speed, scalability. I need to get started now. I have goals to hit. I have growth that I want to do, and I have a little extra money to burn if that's what's necessary. I'm okay signing a contract for 3, 6, 12 months because I've been in business 5 years and I'm not too concerned that I won't be around in the future. So there's a lot of kind of factors that you have to look at between the two. And here's one reason why, an agency might be preferred. Firstly, an agency is kind of like ready to go right off the bat. They have a team, they have people that have been trained, they have expertise. They're not really usually going to require much onboarding, maybe a little bit to get to know you, your industry, your target market, but at least in terms of the services they offer, they should be kind of ready to go right away. In addition to people, they also have a bunch of tools, and people kind of overlook this, but in order to do the job that we want to do, if it's SEO or whatever it might be, chances are there's some tools that people are going to need, and they can be quite expensive. Like some of these tools are hundreds of dollars per month, but without them, the person wouldn't really be capable of of doing their job. So agencies are kind of paying for all those tools as part of what makes them more expensive. They're going to be more likely to hit the ground running and just be able to kind of get started right away. And they're likely going to have some case studies and things like that of clients that they've worked with before and some learnings. And then this last part is kind of about link building, which again is very specific to SEO, but they likely, just by nature of the fact that they have been living a particular service for maybe years, they're just going to have more comprehensive connections and understanding of that service than an individual who, in all likelihood, maybe is doing a little of this, a little of that. especially at smaller companies, people tend to kind of wear a lot of hats, and so they might have some exposure to certain things, but not necessarily be real subject matter experts. That being said, there's a flip side, right? Agencies' business model is basically charging a certain amount for services or labor, and then trying to get that labor and services for as cheaply as possible. That's just kind of, that's how they earn their money. And some agencies are going to have kind of an ethical sort of floor about, hey, I want to make sure that we always are making sure that the people that we're working with, and the things that we're buying, the services that, the sort of the supply, is always kind of, good quality. But it's a fine line. Not every agency really has that ethical boundary, and they might feel that what they're here to do is to charge a lot and spend a little. And so you end up with really a poor quality result. Additionally, agencies often, they tend to work under different like contracts. They'll probably want you to sign, a couple month contract, because the amount of time, I mean, mainly because they just want to have some stability in their cash flow, right? And they want to kind of know that you're locked in for a couple of months. Whereas an individual, you can kind of bring on and potentially let go kind of at will. And they may, agencies may struggle a bit to, basically know your brand. And no, sorry, I have a dog in the background. 1 second, please. Sorry, just needed a couple of minutes. Agencies often will struggle to kind of know your vibe a bit. They work with often like a lot of different industries, and therefore it takes some time to understand who to, what's kind of going on. Sometimes a hybrid approach is the best one, to have an individual on your team who basically represents your organization, represents your brand, can talk with the agency, can oversee the work, can ensure certain quality standards, but they themselves, are not doing all the work because some of the work is just more than, what one person can handle. And so, that combination often works really well. At the end of the day, the choice between, in-house versus an agency it's really up to you. There's a lot of pros and cons, and it's kind of like just knowing what the benefits of each one is going to be. So thank you again for tuning in.